Welcome to Nugget 148 with Steve Groman, and today with Steve Groman, and today we will be continuing our nugget about Mr. Yanara. If you have not listened to Nugget 147, I want to encourage you to stop this nugget right now and go listen to Nugget 147 so you can hear part 1. And now, part 2 of Mr. Yanara's story. After the liberation from the genocidal regime, his medical condition would become his family's ticket to America. He spoke of becoming a Christian and that his dad took him to the American Red Cross because he knew America would help his family. He told us that there was a string of miracles that allowed him and his family, through a Catholic organization, to reach Minnesota, where his condition was repaired at the Mayo Clinic. He lived in Minnesota for years, but now is a very proud Texan. He is extremely vocal about his opinions of our political climate and is very concerned. Here is more of the story as he told me more details during our telephone conversation on Saturday. With the invasion and overthrow of the Khmer Rouge in 1979 by the Vietnamese, his family fled as refugees to Thailand seeking medical help for him. He told us that both the Cambodian and Thailand military protected the border and would kill people crossing the border on either side. His family successfully crossed and they were able to get to Bangkok General Hospital. They were told that only one parent would be able to remain with their son if he was going to be treated. His dad would not agree, and the family was sent 4 hours away to Khao I Dang to a United Nations refugee camp. And it was at this point that our son Paul was touched in that the dad was not going to let his family be separated, for they had been through the killing fields and they were not going to be separated again. Even though he was born in 1963, this date could not be verified, and the administrators at the refugee camp determined he must be 2 years younger based on his looks. They put on his paperwork that he was born in 1965. This served as an advantage as a refugee because he was treated as a minor and not as an adult. Still today, his paperwork states his birth year as 1965. Yanara became sick again in the refugee camp. He told me that he was injected with penicillin all the time, and I asked him why penicillin, and he replied, "I guess that's all they had." A lady doctor at the camp was a godsend and helped get permission for him to return to Bangkok. She advised his dad not to let them do open heart surgery as they were not qualified. Based on the lady doctor's advice, his dad refused to let them do surgery on his son. The staff went to them 3 times to perform surgery. 16 years old at the time, Yanara remembers late one night a woman was taken into surgery, and the next thing he knew was they were telling her husband to go see her dead body. Others died after surgery. So his dad continued to refuse them to operate on Yanara. As a result, they sent them to another refugee camp. When Yanara developed a heart murmur, he was placed in ICU at Bangkok General Hospital. While there, Sister Gabrielle, a French Catholic nun, provided the money for his dad to stay there to be with Yanara. After 2 weeks in General Hospital, the INS interviewed him. Even though his family did not have a sponsor, the family was being allowed to travel to America. Another miracle, according to Yanara. As soon as they were approved to go to America, several other countries sent approvals, but Yanara's father was set on becoming an American. On December 16, 1980, the family arrived in America, Minnesota to be exact. Yanara underwent open-heart surgery on January 7, 1981 at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. He told me he slept for 4 days and his mom was afraid he would never wake up. We determined they must have medicated him heavily to keep him asleep. He also told me that late the night before the surgery, he became frightened about having the surgery. He got in a wheelchair and placed the 2 IVs attached to him onto the wheelchair and rolled out of his hospital room. He saw the nurse's station was vacant, so he quickly went into the visitors area and hid behind the curtain. Obviously, they ended up finding him in time to perform the much-awaited and needed surgery. On January 24, 1981, he started his first day of school as a 5th grader, even though in reality he was 18 years old. But because he did not know much English and his education had been thwarted during the killing fields, they put him in the 5th grade to establish his abilities. Yanara and his Cambodian wife have 3 sons and a handful of grandchildren. His wife has her own incredible story. Yanara worked as a car salesman in Rochester, Minnesota for 16 years. He has owned the Runway Cafe in Angleton at the Gulf Coast Regional Airport for 6 years and the Baytown Seafood Restaurant for 16 years. One of his brothers works as a pharmacist at the Mayo Clinic, and another brother is a banker and columnist in Florida. His other brother also lives in Florida along with his parents, who are retired. One of the brothers was born in 1979 at the end of the killing fields. He also has 2 sisters. I hope to be able to meet his parents one day soon when we return to the great state of Florida. In reflection, as we first walked walked through the gate to be seated at the Runway Cafe, I noticed this Asian man in a funny blue hat talking to another group of people seated at the outdoor tables. When I mentioned this to him, he told me, "I ask everyone who comes in my restaurant if they can help me write my book. If you are a writer or know a writer that would be able to help Yanara put his story in print, please contact me." I hope you were touched by these 2 nuggets and the story of Yanara. If you don't know about the killing fields and this horrific part of world history, I encourage you to investigate it because history has a way of repeating itself if people are not aware of it. Yanara did comment that he found that young people and even his own children could not relate or were not necessarily disinterested in what had happened with him and his family back in Cambodia, but that they just couldn't understand and they couldn't relate. And I encouraged him to get this written and to explain it and to tell everyone he can about the killing fields. I need to insert a correction here in the way that I said Mr. U's last name. It's U and not you. So I apologize, Mr. U, for misstating your name. And I do want to tell him through this nugget that it is a great honor to have met him and to have been able to be a part of sharing his story. In our next nugget, we'll talk about what I really had hoped to see when we went to the Texas Gulf Coast Regional Airport in Angleton. So until that nugget, thank you.